Welcome back to Unified Reality, the podcast where we discuss technology, AI, and entrepreneurship. On today's episode entitled Navigating Legal Challenges in AI, insights from my good friend Amir Kashdaran. How are you, my friend?
Doing good, man, Azad. Thanks for having me, man.
You are very welcome. I've been waiting to have you in. I wanted to do a tour, and I want to pick your brain about legal and AI.
Let's do that, bro.
So tell us a bit about your background. I know you have lots of extensive experience in commercial, corporate, and tech law, and you have I think, a really good role at Delegate Us. So tell us your background, how you got here, how you got started, your passion.
Sure. Look, I'm a tech attorney today at Delegatus, so I love what I do. That fundamentally, what I've been always doing in my life is to love what I do, right? And the path for me to come to AI and law and things like that has been quite interesting. Fundamentally, just like you, Azad, I love arts, I love graphics, I love things like that. So I started my law journey and I started with drawing, believe it or not. I actually...
And when you say drawing, was that just pen and paper, or on a computer?
Pen and paper. So when I was young, I started doing drawings. Eventually, with technology advancing, I was like, digital arts would be nice. So I started doing digital arts. And then from there, you kind of move into learning how to do other, using applications. And I actually got pretty geeky with application. I started doing Python. I started...
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I started doing code.
So you're also a coder? I did not know.
I code in Python. I created a mini legal document platform. And then eventually, you worked in a software company as a general counsel. And now coming back to private practice, I actually represent software companies, and I can speak to the R&D guy or the product guy
and understand
or the CEO and really have a deep technical conversation with each of them.
That's amazing, man. So your passion really was somehow, some way, kind of like me. I was drawing too, and I was writing, and then my dad bought me my first computer, and then Photoshop. It took like 6 hours to load, and I was able to do it. So your passion went from design, and then you jumped into software, and then now you're a leading tech lawyer. And sorry for not saying the name right. It's
Delegatus.
Delegatus.
Delegatus is actually a Latin name, right? And it means to delegate.
Now that you say it, it totally makes sense.
Delegatus, yeah. So
I said it like in a hip hop twist. Delegate us.
Delegate us. That's the English way of saying it.
Very cool, very, very interesting. From drawing to being working at a SaaS company, I guess, or like a software company, and then being a legal lawyer for, I guess, all kinds of stuff. Like, what is your specialty?
So that's a great question. Look, if I have to put my specialty in buckets, I guess from a law perspective, it's really a combination of IP, it's a combination of privacy and commercial law. From a type of clientele perspective, it's really a question of bleeding edge, high-tech technology. So Internet of Things or smart devices, software companies with platforms. And so the idea is to say, look, you have a technology, you have a device, you have a smart tool. You want to monetize that. And so I want to go to market with it. I want to go to market in US or in other jurisdictions. So that's the core of what I do.
Can you tell us a bit more, and this might not be in the sequence that we might have wanted, but what is it that an entrepreneur might need in an MVP, right? So you're starting a software company. What is it that you need? The minimum stuff, right?
Yeah. So actually one of the things that I'm working on right now, which is quite fun, is a client of mine is looking to design a product. They're in the initial design of an application. And they're going to be running a lot of sensitive data through their application. And so the question is, how do we design this product? And what features do we put in it? So that not only from a tech perspective, we're good on IP and we protect, but also from a privacy perspective, how do we implement that so that not only we're compliant, but when we go to market, we don't freak people out.
Yeah, it's interesting. And is this hardware or software?
This is particularly software.
Yeah, but you also do hardware too, right?
Could be hardware and smart devices, yeah.
So basically, you rounding it back for the entrepreneurs, they need to first understand what their product is, obviously, as a tech. But then what's the minimum stuff that they need, right? They do need a lawyer to understand the privacy stuff and all that, but how do you protect yourself right away? Do you need a trademark? Is this an absolute thing? Do you need a patent? Do you need all these things? And I know might not have to exactly be what you do, but I think it's in the trail of IP, right?
Yeah, excellent question, Azad. So it all depends on the company, right? It all depends on what it is that is really the core of what they're trying to monetize. So I have some of my clients, their core moneymaker is their smart device. And so then the question of patent becomes crucial because somebody can just take the device and reverse engineer it, for example. So you want to make sure that, you have that conversation up front.
That's interesting.
Some other clients, what their tool is like, it's a software. I don't want to publish my code. I want to keep it at the trade secret level. I don't want anybody to know about my code. So I'll do whatever I need to protect it and really put guardrails as a trade secret. Whereas now a lot of companies who are using data, so a bunch of my clients, their moneymaker is data. So now the question is, okay, I'm pumping a lot of data through my system. I'm collecting a lot of data. I'm processing a lot of data. The privacy landscape is so complex in different jurisdictions. What is my exposure? Like, what is my minimum viable privacy exposure that I need to fulfill before I go to market, or at least so that I mitigate risk? So those are conversations, Azad, that have to be had. There's no
really
one.
Interesting.
There's no one answer for everybody.
It's not like a cookie cutter.
It's not a cookie cutter.
But if we were to generalize it, kind of what you kind of said was that hardware, since you're going to be releasing it and people could actually have it in their heads, they could reverse engineer it. So yeah, you absolutely need a patent. But let's say a software, I have this idea too that I don't like to share my source code, right? So do I need a patent? You have to talk to legal, so call Amir. And the third thing you were saying is basically the privacy. Now, if we're releasing you very soon, I need you to maybe help us a bit there too. We do have a legal team, but we're an extended family. So that for us was a big concern too. Like, what's our user privacy policy? What's the data policy? And also, like, even on the cookies side, like, okay, they won't go on the website. Are we following them? We wanted to really be transparent with our users because of what we've seen in the past, right? People complaining about Facebook, IG, and all these things. So we really wanted to keep that transparent. And so what are the steps after that, right? So once you figured out, okay, this is how I'm making money, and I want to focus on data a little bit. If I collect data on my platform and I've told the user, hey, I own it, can I resell this?
So these are great questions. So for example, one of the posts I recently just put out with respect to ChatGPT 4.0, right? It's a tool that just got released, and it's intended to be multimodal in a sense that you could have a variety of inputs in a variety of ways, whether it's voice, image, video. You can prompt the system. So what it can do, one of the features that I particularly find interesting is that you can grant ChatGPT 4.0 access to your screen. It'll analyze the content of your screen. It'll understand it. And then you could question it about what's on your screen, right?
It's pretty intense.
Yeah. So in reality, if you really think about it, this is a natural progression of what AI is going to go, because we want to have a human-like interaction. So if, for example, I have a phone and I grant access to the screen of my phone and I point the phone to something, it will tell me what I'm seeing, or it's augmenting my reality in a certain way.
Not only it will tell you, I think it even understands
it. It could extrapolate. You can question what you're seeing, but the question now is, from a privacy perspective or from the data perspective, right? How do you? So ChatGPT decided to release this free.
Yeah.
But obviously, the counterpart, it's not really free, because in exchange, you're granting them your data.
Yes.
Now, what if you want to now monetize this?
Yes.
Then the question changes. Now the question is, okay, now you're collecting data for the purposes of a commercial endeavor. How do you adjust yourself to that. So there's a lot of it's a tectonic plate that is shifting right now, right?
Yeah.
You have AI, so AI technologies are pushing the boundaries at really rapid pace. But
Faster than the legal side, I guess. Right?
Legal side has been always slow, but in the AI, I think they caught on that they need to kind of move.
Yeah, because if not, they might lose too, right?
Exactly. So the EU just last week or 2 weeks ago, they went through the final legislative steps of approving their AI Act. So now the president of 2 different councils have to sign before it becomes in effect. And they're going to have certain systems that are going to be banned.
Oh, so they're banning systems.
Banning. So there's going to be, for example, if you're doing social scoring, so you're analyzing human interactions for scoring an individual and being, pushing, I don't want to say content, but monetizing that information in a certain way.
Yeah.
There could be implications in Europe.
Well, I'm totally against that social scoring anyways. Well, we already have our scores. It's how many followers do you have? Oh, I can't go out with you. I'm joking there, but...
You're right. The social scoring, one example could be you live in this neighborhood. You have these type of social commentaries and interactions. You have that type of people in your following. Now I'm running an assessment of how criminal you could be as an individual, for example.
Yeah.
So I'm criminally...
Or even without, I don't want to go into those, but I could go deep, but let's say just insurance-wise.
Insurance.
Based on those informations, they're already doing it now, kind of, right? But it's even going to be further and further. But, you want to hear a funny story? It's a pause. I was in the United States in a beautiful state, and I was going from state to state. I was traveling. I had a bunch of meetings, and I bought some pants. Out of nowhere, I was next to a Walmart. I went there. I needed black pants. I bought it, and then they were too big. And I bought it for $24.99, and then I was traveling. I went to another Walmart, and the same pants were $29.99. I was like, why? And the staff did not know why. So I come back out of the store. I'm like, oh, my God, I'm in a poor neighborhood. It's a poorer neighborhood than the other neighborhood. Then I started checking online, and
you noticed that
we noticed that there's different neighborhoods have different prices for the same product. But not only that the poorer neighborhoods, it's more expensive. Try to understand why, America.
But to this point, before we move on to the next question, one of the things, for example, I'm just thinking out loud here, that could be interesting is, you have Uber doing real-time pricing, right? You have different companies who are doing real-time pricing based on demand, supply, and demand. Now, the question is, can that pricing get adjusted based on your social score?
Yeah,
right.
That's a really good point.
So there's a lot of things.
And we don't like this guy. He has glasses.
We don't. This guy has glasses. This guy is this height. Whatever. Right.
Sorry, I cut you.
No worries. And so I'm. These things. I'm fascinated with these things. For me, it's not about what's banned or not. It's like conceptually, I love diving into these concepts. Whatever society decides. I mean, one society can decide it to go this way. The other society decides that way. Me as an attorney, particularly as a user who's a tech freak, I love being able to kind of play around with these things and kind of understand.
It's really interesting. It's really, really interesting. One more selfish question for me, and we'll go to other questions. So who owns the data, really? Let's say I take Llama 3, right? It's open source. It's been trained on a bunch of different things, but now when you download the Llama 3 open source code, I could take it and then feed it my data. Let's say I feed some of your contracts, right? Without you even knowing. Mm-hmm. How do you track all this? Should there be a system where we could actually track everything and say, okay, well, you created this PDF, now it's being trained on that model, but it's too much information, right? It's too much.
So the landscape for this question is also evolving. In the United States right now, for example, I'm doing a lot of legislative monitoring in this, particularly also in case laws or lawsuits. In the United States, you have a bunch of lawsuits where authors, artists, and creators in general are taking action against these AI companies. And there's different layers about the data. There's different implications. So the first implication is who owns the data that gets fed into the model for training purposes? So there's an implication there.
The model for the trial.
Model for the training. Then the other implication is what type of data is your model capturing, and is it transparent enough as to if it's taking content like data A, B, and C, or is the data set ever expanding and you don't know what else is
it keeps
happening?
growing,
Yeah.
so you can't control
You
it.
have to be able to have some sort of a governance as to the data set in of itself, and then you have the output of these systems. So the output is another set of data.
Too?
Then the question becomes who owns the data. So the question is a complex legal question, and there's different arguments that have been put forward into. So authors, creatives, what they're saying is the data that got pumped into that model is copyrighted. So what are you doing with my data without my permission and without paying me for my data, right? Then the counter argument is, well, what we do is we're just taking content that is available online and we're just using that to and for research purposes. There's also the concept in the United States of fair use.
Yes, fair use. Yeah.
Fair use gives you it's a more of a defense argument. It's not a right that you can claim, but if you have a lawsuit, you can
say
defend yourself with that. But again, it's like they're claiming some sort of a fair use. We'll see how the court
does the parody law come in there too? Let's say like if I take a video from Eddie Murphy and I parody him, it becomes mine, right?
Yeah, there's exceptions for parody and things like that. But again, from right now, the real core issue is the training data set.
First, the training. So the models have to be trained with lots of data.
Yeah.
And then in order to get your prompt, you also need to feed some other data. And then the third part that you said is the output of all of this. So who owns each one of the pieces?
Who owns each? For example, one of the other challenge from a legal perspective is Azad goes into ChatGPT or any like Midjourney to create an image. And Azad types, draw me an image that resembles that of Picasso.
Yeah.
You are prompting the system to actively...
So the system is not prompting.
The system is not auto-deciding.
So now I'm to blame, basically.
So now the question is, what's the level of responsibility between the user and the tool, right? So
the tool, sorry.
So if the user is...
I went AI full mode. Now the tool became a creator.
Exactly. Interesting fact. I'll do a parenthesis here. Somebody that I have it's a friend of mine who, when I say friend, it's somebody that I have interactions with. An attorney in India created an image. It's like a version of the starry skies of Picasso or whatever. And he actually decided to go in every jurisdiction. He's an IP attorney.
Okay. And
he decided to request the registration of this image in different jurisdictions to see who allows this registration for a copyright or not. And in like most jurisdictions, they refused his request. Canada accepted, his request in December of 2021, and he is named as a co-author, like the individual is a co-author, but his AI tool is in Canada considered as an AI tool, as a co-author.
A co-author. So the actual AI tool is an author now.
So I have not heard so far that the Copyright Office revoking that copyright because of them accepting an AI tool as a co-author. But obviously,
this gives us precedent now, basically. In Canada,
we have one registration at least.
What are some interesting cases that you've seen lately? Like, was it Taylor Swift or one of the big stars is suing
Scarlett Johansson?
Okay, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Scarlett Johansson was approached by OpenAI some time ago to say, look, we're creating these avatars with voices, and so we would love to have your voice for this avatar. She specifically said, no, I'm not interested. And then Sky, which is the avatar that just got released not long ago, ended up having a voice that astoundingly sounds like Scarlett Johansson, and she was not happy.
Yeah, I saw some posts. So, who owns your voice? You should own your voice, but it becomes very complicated.
It's a murky territory. So I think we need to have, right now, proper governance in place. So what are the things that I, particularly with clients who may have AI and run AI data and stuff like that, the question is really think through your data flow. Okay, think through that and see where you may have potential challenges. Today there could be challenges. It's not. I don't think we can get away from that. It's a question of how much appetite you have for those challenges, and how much do you believe in what you're doing, right? So there's a lot of. It's still murky, right? So
I was talking to a creator the other day, and a lot of people don't understand large language models and all these things. So I broke it down to him and said, hey, it's not that complicated. This thing, this software, it predicts, right? So just words, you have words, what comes before, what comes after, then you could manipulate it how you want. And they were telling me like, hey, I don't use AI. None of our artists use AI. This was at an agency. And my question to you is, do you use AI on a daily? And do your colleagues at the firm use AI? And does the firm like openly say, hey, you know what? We want you guys to use AI.
Such a great question as a person, as a technology enthusiast, and someone who's technical. I like to put my hands into the different platforms and stuff. I can tell you the moment ChatGPT was released, I was already starting to play around with it. But then there's a moment of pause. There's a moment of, okay, there's this can have really significant implications here. And then there was a question. At that point, there was a lot of people saying we should ban it, we should avoid. I, right from the beginning, said, wait a minute. When the internet came out, people said it's going to make us, sorry for the language, it's going to make us dumber or whatever. AI is a technological shift and breakthrough that has happened, and it's going to be there. It's going to stay.
It's not going.
We're not going back to a pre-internet era. We're not going back to a pre-AI era.
Yeah.
So for me, the question is, okay, I understand the initial defense mechanism of wanting to ban and to stop, but that's not it's not realistic. Mm-hmm. So for me, the question has always been, how do we embrace this? And so I've been advocating the use of AI, but in a responsible manner. So for example, your question about attorneys. One of the things that I've been vocal about, and it's published in the Droit Inc. article, publications as well, is that, lawyers touch data that could be trade secrets. Mm-hmm. We touch data that could be confidential. We touch data that are privileged by professional secrecy. Mm-hmm. You cannot afford to have this data get pumped into a model, right?
Yes.
But if you're looking to create a presentation, if you're looking to create, to generate an idea for an upcoming event or something, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I mean, AI is enhancing your ability to be able to be a greater, author, not author, but that's the wrong
creator.
Word. Creator.
So I totally agree with everything you're saying.
So for me is, okay, put in the internal policies to make sure that your lawyers are not putting in client trade secret information that should be protected by professional secrecy and confidential. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, if there's a set understood use cases, go ahead and knock yourself out. I mean, come on. The kids are going to play around with this, and lawyers are not going to have that ability to understand it. That doesn't make sense.
Because next thing you know, there's going to be an AI lawyer, but a person that's expert in law with AI, and he's like 14 years old right now, right? He's listening to us, and he's like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really interesting. So, that's really, really interesting. So the impact is all around.
The other thing I'll say is it's foolish for us, whether we're lawyers or otherwise, it's foolish for us to think that we can put up barriers strong enough to avoid this reality.
Yeah.
Our kids are going to be playing with this. The new generation is going to be, this is going to be seamless for them. And then you coming to say, look, forget about this. Like, don't use, imagine I come and tell you, don't use the internet.
Yeah, it's like,
Seriously.
seriously? Or don't use your phone.
Don't use your phone.
So I see it as the first part of the wave of, oh no, let's ban it. That just being, humans not liking change. That's the first part. The second part, being afraid of losing or not being able to catch up. Or it's also sometimes it's laziness. I've seen this, like, now I have to learn this. It's like, yeah. My philosophy is not learn, work. It's more learn, work. And we grow as humans like that. So, and that's why, like, if downstairs, it's a whole R&D for us, right? Like, each one of those cameras is like a fun thing that I could learn. And learning also opens your mind. It's neurons, right? It's not just, oh, I learned this thing. It's my brain is better. I'm training my brain, right? Like a muscle, it gets better. It's not a muscle, but I have this, I just say, treat it like a muscle. It'll get better and bigger.
A couple of fun facts before we go to your next question. When cars were invented, going high speeds, okay? People used to say, if you get into a car that goes above 50 kilometers an hour, your brain is going to start kind of like falling apart.
Yeah.
Another fun fact, when calculators were authorized in schools, I had posted this image of this huge strike of teachers holding signs to say kids are going to become stupid by using calculators. As a matter of fact, as our knowledge of humanity is expanding, in the past 15 to 20 years, we've created most of the data that humanity has ever created. We cannot fathomably manage that just by our own
impossible,
singular brains. We need the technological tools to help us synthesize that. So I think it's an advancement of our overall knowledge as humanity at that.
Yes, I totally agree. And the calculator is AI, right? It's a way of calculating stuff that's stored in there. Now you could just get that info right away, like ChatGPT, let's say. So coming back to licenses and all that, we have not forced everyone, but we've got a free license for everyone at first. We says use the free license. Who wants us to pay for the GPT Plus? Now all of our staff is on 4.0. And not only that we're there, but we just did a deal with, we're negotiating something with Alphabet, so we might switch to Gemini, and they showed us why we should. And they said there's these custom things that, and all our staff was like, oh man, we need Gemini 1.5. I'm pretty sure ChatGPT is going to update it too, but like you don't even need to copy paste anymore. You don't even need to like prompt stuff where you're like, just let's say I feed it this big text and I don't need to write again, hey, make a short version that's one paragraph for LinkedIn. Not even. It's already pre-redone. Like it's there's like presets, let's say, and it says like short version for LinkedIn. I just click it or now say it.
Yeah.
Write it for LinkedIn.
They're probably using the most common prompts inputted into their system.
Yeah,
and they've
that's smart, right?
They statistically determined that 75% of the time, these categories they generate, the people are asking for this in different ways. So why don't we just simplify it?
And the guy pitching it to me works at Google, right? He's like, I wrote the email 2 days ago like that. Did you like it? I'm like, I knew you used something, but yeah, it was good. It was all right. Okay, so we talked about some of the legal, we talked about GPT for a while, but some of the legal stuff and also some of the trends. So we talked about like Scarlett Johansson actually suing OpenAI.
I don't know if she started.
Or she's just complaining.
But she was not happy yet. But
it's normal that,
she may have an app, but I still don't have that information. But
what are like some of the big cases that you saw that were really interesting, like let's say in the last few weeks?
Well,
in terms of
in the last few weeks,
yeah,
the Scarlett Johansson kind of woke up the beast a little bit again because there was a bunch of lawsuits against OpenAI, Stability AI, and Deviant Art and all of that stuff. But there was like a bunch of lawsuits in a short period of time, a burst, and then things started kind of just stabilizing a bit. I think Scarlett Johansson has put now the the emphasis again on this, how AI companies are potentially using the information in ways that they consider not.
It's super, super complicated, all this. I'll give you a little analogy that I have. So I started designing on Photoshop when I was maybe 13 or 14. And the first thing I did was take Pamela Anderson's picture, modify it, put it in another picture, and I put her next to me and stuff like that. In that case, I literally copied her picture. But other times I would look at, let's say, a Picasso picture, and then I would try to do something that looked like it, but my version, right? Isn't that somehow me looking at someone else's art and stealing it? Except it's my brain that's doing it. And in this case, it would be a software that my brain made. OpenAI is a software made by humans that does what I've told it to do, kind of like the calculator. So I think it's very ambiguous, and I could argue about this for hours.
Yeah, I mean, look, fundamentally, the argument on the AI companies, their argument is, look, we're not copying anybody's information. What we're doing is we're taking your picture or the content or written poems or whatever. We're making mathematical inferences from this. We're extracting statistical data from this. So once we render this statistical inferences, then if you prompt us, we're not going to pick a data that we trained upon to kind of give it to you. So we're not replicating. What we're simply doing was we're generating new information, but based on the statistical inferences that we already understood. And so that's why one of the, they were saying that the authors are saying to not OpenAI, but AI companies to say, you guys are infringing on copyright by copying. They're saying we're not copying. If you prompt my system to give you an answer, and the answer, for the sake of simplicity, the answer is no. Are you suggesting that this could be a copyright of somebody that said no? My tool is not saying no. My tool is simply recognizing your prompt as a mathematical equation. It's recognizing the human data, human language as a mathematical equation, and it's giving a response mathematically that the output shows an O on the screen.
So what's your stance on this, if you want to, right? Let me tell you mine. What you just said is key to me. It's a mathematical equation. So it's not actually creating anything. It's just, it's a code, let's say, like Fibonacci, right? Like, who invented Fibonacci? Now, if you do a good drawing, I'll find Fibonacci in it. Mm-hmm. Every big drawing, every painting
in nature,
everything has Fibonacci. So now, is that mathematical equation that you're talking about some sort of Fibonacci? And when you follow it, it works, right? So let's say art. If you follow Fibonacci proportions, people like it, right? But who invented it? Now, can I copyright Fibonacci and say it's mine? Or the guy that discovered it, is it theirs? No, it was in nature. No, we didn't discover Earth. Like, we didn't make Earth or the sun and all of these things. We have a creator. But it's really interesting.
The analogy, Azad, is this. You go into a museum, you look at a Picasso painting. Your brain synthesizes that information. That information is not a copy of that information. It's now a molecular synthesis in your brain, right? It's some sort of neurons firing in your brain.
It's like my version of a report about that, let's say.
And then you then look at a Riopelle painting, right? Now you have these two models, these two data is now trained in your mind as neuron firing, right?
Yeah.
Now you go home, you draw something original from yourself, but inspired from these two things. So you didn't copy them, but you've created. So now the question is, okay, did you infringe on Picasso and Riopelle, right? And the AI companies are now kind of positioning the argument in a little. There's that analogy, if you can.
Well, I kind of agree with that because, like So what? We're all copy infringers, like our DJs. Every song that we know today has a sample, and it's been remixed and remixed and remixed. So like, what is? There's nothing new under the sun, really. We're just humans. Like even humans, we all look the same. We think we're different, but we all look the same. So did I infringe on your copyright by looking a little bit like you? That was a joke. Really good, interesting AI talks, and I won't take it too, I won't elasticate it, but I could talk about this and with you for days. So I'm going to invite you back on some specific stuff, maybe,
yeah.
and maybe even have like an influencer or a creator next to us, the way he could ask his questions and say, well, I created this 3D asset, who owns it? But I copied this thing and that thing, and I took the template, and you'd be surprised how much stealing goes on. Not just with assets, but also software. Yeah. Like almost nobody pays for the softwares that they use. No, more now, but back then, 10 years ago, it was really very scary for SaaS companies. Like they're hacking everything. You are somehow an entrepreneur as well, right? Because you do put yourself out there. I've seen you at talks. You go to conferences. You're here with us now. You're interested in different fields. I'd like to pick your brain just a little bit for entrepreneurs. So what would you have as the best advice for a new entrepreneur that's starting a tech company? We did talk about the patents, IPs, and all that. But other than that, on the entrepreneur side, from your personal experience, what would be one thing that you give as an advice? And also, what would be a big challenge that you've seen or that you've had? So you could combine these two together.
Sure. I think one of the most important thing for me, at least personally, if I can put a personal spin on this, I think a lot of people have ideas, and a lot of good ideas. And I think it all comes down to that is that cliche. You can have the best idea, but the execution is really where you differentiate yourself. I think we need to have, like, entrepreneurs who are looking to go to market, they should not be fearful that 50 other people are potentially doing something the same, or 100 other people doing the same. Make sure you execute right, meaning talk to the right people, go to your network, speak to the people who can bring you to elevate you to the next step. So if you always are talking to people who are and you're always the smartest in the room, buddy, you're not going to make it.
Something wrong.
You need to constantly be talking to people who are smarter than you, who are better than you, more connected than you, have been there and done that. So I think, you could always have a good idea and always talk like the smart talk. You're not going anywhere, man. Like be out there, and don't be afraid of looking, like learning and appearing that you screwed up.
Yeah.
Right.
I say that all the time. Don't be afraid of asking for help, or looking like you need help, or just literally, I need help, right? Ask. You'd be surprised how many people want to help you.
And one of the things that I find from, looking at it from an investor vantage point is somebody who comes to me who understands everything and who knows everything, who's been there, who's done that. Okay, but you don't need anybody else.
You don't need me.
Then you should be able to do it really well now.
Yeah,
you're good. You're good.
Yeah, so that I think is an amateur or a beginner mistake, right? Because we don't want to look bad, and because we think of all these things in our minds. Because I've done this 10 years ago, like I know everything. But now I tell you, I know a bit of everything in the technical side, but I can't do most of it. Like I can't do law. I'm not going to say I can. I understand some stuff, but like I'm not going to go into the micro of the contract and the IP and the patent and all that stuff. Okay, cool. Very good advice. Now, a bit more focused more on what you've done. So any advice for any upcoming lawyers or legal counsels that want to get into IP? What would be the first things, the first steps?
I think for somebody who happens to be in the tech space, I personally believe, and this is for me, I'm really, I do not particularly enjoy dealing with people who speak a lot of expertise, but who've never tried the tools. Like the analogy I'll make is, if you want to run an army as a general, you better have been in the trenches at one point, right? So I think for somebody in the tech space, if you're just an attorney and understanding theories of the law and stuff like that, that's great. That can get you so far. But if you want to be on the bleeding edge of this technology, on the landscape where the tectonic plates are shifting, where things are not, there's a lot of uncertainty and gray zones. If you want to operate in that sector, and personally, that's where I get most of my thrills. You need to have the technical knowledge. And so for me, my biggest takeaway for younger lawyers is, don't just be a lawyer, be a technology lawyer. Right?
That's really well said. And so tell them a little bit on how to get started in terms of, should they start coding? Should they download software? Should they start reading tech books? What would be that entry level?
Everybody will have their own ways of learning. For example, my personal path was, since I'm curious in nature, I actually downloaded the stuff. I actually designed stuff. I actually coded. I learned coding. I went really deep into it. I worked in a software company, and so you talk with developers, you become friends with them.
Part of your DNA now.
It becomes a little bit part of like who you are today based on what you're doing right now. Right now, what you do is your DNA. I mean, and like the smallest new things that comes out in the market, you'll know about it, or you'll get wind of it, right?
Yeah.
Because you're in the ecosystem.
And I'm guessing same thing for you now.
Lawyers have to be like that. I mean, if you're partly doing some tech work, you're not in the ecosystem. You're not up to date on everything that is coming out, or you're not doing the legislative monitoring. You're a tech attorney, maybe in title, but you're not really a tech attorney.
I get it. I totally get it. Okay, so I have another question for you. Based on what you were saying in your past, right? So you worked as a general counsel for a tech company inside there for 10 years, I think.
About 6 years, yeah.
6 years. And now you're more at a
in private practice.
Private practice. Which one do you prefer and why?
They both have stimulating challenges in different ways. When you're in-house, right? You're a general counsel in a company. The legal advice you give, you live it right away. So you say, you know what? I think that's a path we should go. Let's do it. From a legal perspective, we're fine. And I'm just thinking theoretically. And then you go, next thing you know, there's a major hurdle that presents itself. Well, you need to deal with that, right? Whereas outside counsel has the ability to kind of say, based on this information that you gave me, I can give you this analysis, but then you do what you have to do. Yes. So you don't live necessarily.
I get it.
But on the other hand, one thing that I really enjoy as a private practice, particularly having been, in-house in the trenches, as I was saying earlier on, is you develop those skills to kind of say, well, I think that's a path that I think there could be some pitfalls, or that's a better path we should take. So it's an experience. It's an enriching experience, but in different ways.
Yeah, so I totally get it. All right, we're going to go towards the end of the episode. So I just wanted to speak a little bit more on entrepreneurship as we were doing, and mentorship. So I do know that you've been involved in some mentorship. Could that be like with Startup Montreal? I read this.
Startup Montreal. I do also FinTech Cadence. I'd like to be also, perhaps my next project would be Next AI. I think that's also a great place to be. So the idea is really to support young entrepreneurs. That was, one of the things that I enjoy is entrepreneurship. I love entrepreneurship, and everything I've done in my career path as an attorney had a significant entrepreneurial component to it. Whether it's, you're running your own practice, whether you're working in a startup that is penetrating new markets and exploring new products. And so, the idea for me is to kind of say, you know what, there's a bunch of people out there who have a dream. And, we each have acquired some experiences in our lives. I think it will help if someone can maybe benefit from that. So it's really something that I do out of my own time. It's not a paid engagement. It's really the pure pleasure of speaking with entrepreneurs, geeking out on
really good.
Geeking out on technology.
having some fun.
And having some fun in the process.
And helping, right? Yeah. So our CTO, Richard Destiny, he and Beverly Jacques, they have CBSTL in Montreal. So we volunteer, we help, the city helps. We do lots with the youth in terms of sports. But I want to get into the entrepreneurship side now for the mentorship. So I'll be contacting you back. I'm preparing something where we could do either weekly or bi-weekly meetings. Let's say some sort of a supper somewhere where we invite the younger startups. We answer their questions, right? And we pick one a month and we do like some sort of draw at the end of the year. We give them 10, 20, 30K. Like we all just chip in and give it to them to help them. I think that's well-deserved for entrepreneurs. This morning I saw the new list of startup cities. Montreal is still not in it. After all of this talk, all of this, blah, 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 we're still not the top 20. We should be. We're in America. We're here. We're like 6 hours from New York, 6 hours from Toronto. How are we not on that list?
We need to be on that list.
Yeah, so I think it's for the other entrepreneurs to do it. And shout out to the other entrepreneurs that are older than us that help us too, because there are some of them that mentor us, and I'm sure you have some mentors too. So we need more of you guys, and now we need to replicate ourselves too. So you guys weren't a lot, you know. Now we're a bit more, and we're going to make it even more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Azad, I'm totally in. For me, I personally really enjoy that. It's the journey of
the process, the journey, and because it's fulfilling. You know, you learn, you build, and you help. What else are we supposed to do on Earth, right? Do that for our kids, and then do it for our neighbors, and then do it for our neighborhood, and the whole world eventually through the internet, right? Just like we're doing now. Okay, so really good episode, Amir. I'm really happy to have you on. I'm going to invite you again for certain things.
Happy to.
Any last thoughts from you? Like, is there any interesting maybe blog posts or content you want us to watch, or maybe something interesting in terms of events or projects upcoming for you?
Sure. So last year, there was an event called All In, which was the first major AI event here in Montreal. The Prime Minister was here. We had Sophia the robot was here. I particularly enjoyed being there. I think it's somebody who's interested in meeting with companies who are showcasing and getting to learn about it. I think that's a great event to be in. So if you want to be in that event, I think that's a great place to be. And any other AI events, look, we may cross paths.
That's great. Perfect. I have a little funny story for you for Sophia. We met Sophia digitally. Like there was a meeting with some of the investors. They put her on Zoom. This was like 6-7 years ago. We started laughing. Then some of our friends at C2 Montreal said, hey, Sophia's coming for a PR event. We want you guys to come and cover it and like ask her questions. So one of our colleagues, Rodrigo, listed some questions and we sent it over, and they said, we're going to ignore half of these questions. And because the questions were made to break Sophia.
Okay.
Right? So we were being, we weren't being nice. So we were like, let's break Sophia. We got there and he said, no, you could only answer these 3 questions. And I'm like, hold on, this sounds really fishy. So it's not AI. You guys are typing it over there. And they start looking at each other. I'm like, did I just say your truth? So you're actually typing it? And he said, no. Sometimes we have to correct it. I said, okay. He said, ask the first question, be nice. So we said, okay, hey, hello, Sophia. Today we're at C2 Montreal's PR event and something, I don't know what, she broke. She broke anyways. And we're like, dude, even the stupid question broke her. So yeah, shout out to Sophia.
Is that 6 years ago?
Yeah. 5-6 years ago, something like that. It was a while ago.
What one video that people should check is Jimmy Kimmel and Sophia. They are together. That's
this is funny stuff. So my friend, thank you for having for coming on, for your insights, for all the knowledge, and we can't wait to see you again.
Yeah, you tell me the date and time.
Thank you again, my friend.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.